Hi friends, I'm Liz and welcome back to Elizabeth Ann Can Stitch. Today's episode is going to be all about quilts, and specifically the quilts I have in progress that haven't been completed yet. I will definitely be doing a completed quilts tour of all the quilts that I kept and that live in my house, and more that live at two of my sister's houses and my parents' house. So that will be coming soon, but that takes a little bit more prep work. So I thought today I would walk you through all of the quilts in my craft room that haven't been completed yet. So yeah, before I get into that, I thought I would just talk a little bit about how I got into quilting. So in college, I got a job at Hancock Fabrics, and this was probably in 2003-ish. Could have been 2002, probably 2003. I think I was about 20. So I got a job at Hancock Fabrics. I already knew how to sew. I loved sewing. I had been sewing since, I don't know, I remember making like a little pillowcase at like 6 or 7 or something, because my mom knew how to sew and she taught me. So I had made little things and sewn things, and in my first apartment in college made some curtains and just different little sewing projects like that. But it was really the job at Hancock Fabrics that got me into quilting. There was a woman there, I think, wish I could remember her name for sure. I think it was Pat, who worked only in the quilting section at our Hancock store, which was like prime position, you know, getting to help people pick out fabric for quilts and just doing all the fun stuff. I loved the quilt fabric section at Hancock. So I got to be good friends with her, and she kind of gave me some pointers and some tips, and I showed her some books I was looking at, and she told me which one would be a good to start with. And I had a sewing machine, and so I just went for it. I just bought, you know, fabric and supplies and a quilt pattern I liked and got started. So yeah, I've been quilting now for, I guess, about 17 years. And I think I've probably made, 100 is my conservative estimate, at least 100 quilts. I kind of went through all of the people and quilts and just everything I've made over the years, and it's got to be at least 100, if not more. I think I have about maybe 12 quilts of my own that I've kept. And then the majority have been baby quilts or wedding quilts or housewarming presents, or just because I wanted to make a pattern and I was like, I can't keep any more quilts, so here you go. I've made a bunch of Christmas quilts for my family. Yeah, I've made a ton of quilts. So anyways, I think I have like 8, maybe 10 works in progress to show you. So not too terribly many, but you know, it's a good bit. So yeah, I'm gonna walk you through what's in the queue and if I think I'm ever gonna finish it. I have mentioned this before, but I recently moved. Well, a year ago I moved. And so I did do some fabric purging and some project purging at that point, where there were some things that I was like, I'm just never gonna get to this. Somebody want it, donate it, get rid of it. You know, I kind of did that a year ago. But looking at the quilts I have around me, there might be 1 or 2 that might not ever get done. So maybe I'll have to de-stash those. But I don't know. Let's just get into it. And I'm gonna start walking you through all of my quilts in progress. And I'm gonna start with the oldest and move to the newest. So this is gonna be a trip down fabric memory lane. You might recognize some older fabric lines if you've also been quilting for a long time. So let's get started. Okay, so first up is my woven quilt kit. And so I made these boxes and labels when I was moving, and I don't know if you can read this, but it says, "Where's the pattern?" ? So this might be a candidate for, it's not gonna get finished because I don't have the pattern. I do have a row done, so maybe I could backwards, you know, re-engineer the pattern. So it was a free pattern from Honeybee Quilt Shop, which is my local quilt store here in Austin. It's in Northwest Austin. And I bought the supplies to go with the pattern. I think it was a jelly roll. It was designed for a jelly roll. And I got started on it. and then kind of fell out of love with it and put it away. And so I think this one has been lingering since maybe 2011. But yeah, let me show you what this quilt looks like. So here is the first row I had done. And you can see it's a jelly roll paired with solid gray, and it's kind of like a woven basket weave type pattern. Yeah, so it's really cute. I haven't done anything with it. And I don't know if I will. And I also am missing the pattern. So I'm gonna Google, maybe the pattern's out there. It was a free pattern. I don't remember who it was from, but yeah, maybe I can find it. And the jelly roll that I was using, I found the selvages, and it is called Hunky Dory by Chez Moi. So from Moda. Oh yeah, here it is. Hunky Dory. And I think this is circa 2011. Next up is a quilt that technically isn't started yet, but I can still, I still consider it a work in progress because, well, I've pulled it out and looked at it a lot of times and I've never started it. And to be quite honest, I don't know how I feel about doing this one now. This is from 2014 and it is called Avatrix Medallion by Elizabeth Hartman. And actually I'll put the color picture of the quilt up on the screen so you can see what it looks like. And this one was a fat quarter bundle, which, how gorgeous, right? Are these? This is why I bought it. Like these gorgeous colors and then the gorgeous quilt pattern, but it's really complicated. And you'll probably get a sense of this in my finished quilt parade. I don't make a lot of super complicated quilts. I have, well, have I? I don't know. You tell me. I think there's far more complicated quilts out there than mine, but I tended to like the simple quilt block, but with really kind of like contrast or just really pretty prints. Like I'm all about the fabric. I have made some quilts with solids and I love the way the like modern solid quilts look, but I really fall in love with like a fabric line and then want a quilt out of that fabric line, right? Like that's what I just did with my Halloween quilt. So a lot of the quilts I make tend to be on the simpler side to show off the fabric, and that's just how I like to do things. So this Avatrix Medallion quilt is super complicated and I can definitely do it. It's all doable. It's just patchwork. But it's complicated. So, but I do love these beautiful fat quarters. So if they don't get turned into the Avatrix Medallion quilt, they will get turned into another quilt because, yeah, beautiful. But this has been sitting, oh, fat quarter shop, hello. This has been sitting in my craft room since 2014 with the pattern ready to go. I just haven't started it. Okay, so this next one is one I want to finish, and when I get through some other things, this needs to get pulled out and made a priority because I'm really close to having everything cut out and to be able to just assemble all the blocks. And yeah, I need to make this quilt. This is the Single Girl Quilt by Denise Schmidt. I just love Denise Schmidt. She is kind of one of the first pattern designers I fell in love with, and maybe the late 2000s, mid 2000s. I don't remember when she became really popular, but I love Denise Schmidt. I think my mom and her best friend Pam turned me on to Denise Schmidt a long time ago. And I have had this quilt in progress since about 2014. And it's a really complicated one. All of the little individual wedge pieces for the rings are hand cut individual. There's 26 shapes. So, but I have that part done. That part's been done since like day 2 of this quilt. I just haven't assembled all of those big giant ring blocks yet. So here is my big box of stuff. And you'll see in the video where I I laid out all the pieces so you can kind of see what this one is going to look like. Next up is just a simple Churn dash quilt that I probably started in 2016. Here it is. This one, there's no pattern. I just looked up I think it's a 9-inch Churn dash square and cut my pieces accordingly. And I am using one of those cotton and steel quarterly club kits that I get from Back Quarter Shop. I've been getting these since 2015 or 16, and this is one of the packs, and I love the fabrics in it. And I just had the idea to pair it with Kona Natural and make Churn dash blocks in alternating patterns. So one where the Churn dash is the print and one where it is the natural. So I've got one of my 12 fat quarters into its Churn dash blocks. There'll be 4 for each piece of fabric or each fat quarter. So yeah, I just need to make the rest of it, and this will get done eventually. It just hasn't gotten any love in a while, so that's my Churn dash quilt. Okay, so next up is my Heart You Quilt. And this one is a pattern from Megan at Then Came June on Instagram, and that's her shop name, Then Came June. And I'll pop the pattern up here so you can see what it's gonna look like. And yeah, this one is so cute. It is, I guess, a Valentine's pattern, but really it looks like those little heart bubbles that you can text on iMessage if you have an iPhone, when you kind of, you know, long press and tap heart on a comment. If you have an iPhone, that makes sense. If not, I don't know, maybe it doesn't. Maybe other phones do that too. But they're just little heart bubbles, and I think they're so cute. And I have only made one block, and here is that one block. Oh, it's so cute. And I'm gonna use the red and white hearts as the backing and the yellow as the binding. And it's just a little sea of aqua with red and pink hearts. And eventually this one will get done. I think I started this one probably in 2017, whenever the pattern came out. I'll link any of the patterns I've mentioned below. If they're linkable, I'll put everything in the drop down. Okay, so now we're getting to the last year and a half or so, and I have 3 more quilts to show you. So this first one is actually 2 baby quilts, and I believe my sisters know about this. I was making one for my sister Allison and her boys, and one for my sister Lynn and her 2 little girls. At the time I started making it, she just had 1 little girl, but now it's for both. And they're just little baby Christmas quilts, like just to snuggle under, you know, during winter. And I am just using a layer cake, super simple. Why have I not just sewn the like 20 seams it'll take to get these together? I don't know, but they've just been sitting and they need to get done for this Christmas. It's super, super cute. I'll look up the fabric line and put it on the screen for you, and it'll be in the notes. You might still be able to get this. It's just from last year, I think. So yeah, I have 2 of these, and I was thinking about possibly backing them with that minky soft fabric. I've never used that on a quilt back, but my Longarm Quilting studio assures me that it's no problem to quilt on. So if they do it all the time and they can help me out with it, then yeah, I'm gonna do it. So yeah, some little baby quilts. Okay, so next up, one I started last summer, or maybe a few months before last summer, I started making an American flag quilt. And I'm gonna put up the image of the Thimbleberries flag quilt because that's the one I saw that I was like, oh my gosh, I need to make it. And to be honest, I don't know if this is bad to say or not. I didn't buy the pattern. I just looked at it and was like, oh, I can make that. So it's probably not their dimensions at all. I have no idea, you know, what their pattern actually looks like. I just picked a bunch of red and blue fabric that I liked and started cutting strips and assembling my blocks. And I've got several of the flags made, and I just need to finish. I probably got 25% of the flags made, so I just need to assemble the other probably 16, and put it all together. So eventually this will get some love and will get finished as well. Here is just an example of one of the blocks. So cute. Okay, and the last quilt that I have in progress, and it is the one I started about a year ago, and it is the one that needs to get done now, and it is Rob's quilt. And so I showed this in a floss tube episode semi-recently. Basically I bought some jelly rolls of Kona shades of gray, and this isn't a pattern, I'm just kind of making this up based on a pattern I saw online and thought, oh, I could do something like that. So I'm doing it. So I bought the jelly rolls, and I bought a couple of specialty novelty prints that incorporate things that Rob likes. And so I am piecing them together and cutting them down into these 12-inch or 12.5-inch lengths. And then there will be pieces on the other side with 4 background color squares to assemble a block. So the blocks will be turned, so they'll look like they kind of weave in and out of each other. I guess kind of similar to that woven quilt, but a little less complicated, a little more simple, and just all kinds of shades of gray, black and white. The background fabric will be black. You know, he's a boy. His favorite color is black and gray. So I'm accommodating it. I think I'm gonna make a super cool, cute black and gray quilt. And I have almost all of the sewing done, and then I have a lot of the cutting done, but then I need to cut down the rest of the big long strips of 3 into the size pieces I need. And then the last piece that I don't have that I need to order is the black background fabric to cut into squares for the corners. So yeah, this is, I think, gonna be my next focus quilt for a little while. So until I get that done, because I want to get it done before Christmas for him. And yeah, that's the last quilt I have in progress. So the last thing I wanted to talk about was how I quilt my quilts. I've gotten some questions on some videos about this, and I use a long arm to quilt my quilts almost about 90% of the time. I have done some quilting on my machine on some baby quilts. I'm not good at it. I'm not good at basting at home. I always get puckers. I can't ever seem to get things as flat and as tight and basted like I want. And then when I transfer it to my machine, I'm just not good at quilting on my home machine. So pretty early on, probably about 11, 12 years ago, I heard of a woman through my local quilt store who rented her long arm machine in her home, and she lived really close to my work, and I booked a time with her to let her teach me how to use her machine. And then I paid her, I think it was only $12 an hour. It was so cheap 10 years ago. Now I'm paying $25, $30 an hour, but anyways, whatever. But so I would just go to her house. I would, email her. She had other people do this too. I would email her, book a time with her, go after work or on weekends, and load my quilt on her machine, and I would long arm quilt it. And she had nothing fancy. It was just a very basic but nice, long arm machine, but there was no computer. There was a stitch regulator, but there was no computerized patterns. So it was either me free motion quilting, or I could use a pantograph. I used a pantograph once, but didn't love it. I just preferred free motioning all of my quilts. So little loop-de-loops and the like puzzle piece squiggles and leaves and vines and flowers and whatever I could think of and whatever I thought I could draw, I free motioned it. And I did that for about 8-9 years. Yeah. On her machine. And then when she kind of stopped renting, I moved to a quilt store that rented time, and then a different quilt store that rented time. And now finally I rent time on a quilt machine at an actual long arm quilting studio. That is what they do. It's called Over the Top Quilting if you're in Austin or Cedar Park. It's great. They have 6 machines. I think 5 long arms and 1 sit down long arm that you can rent. and they have an online appointment system. I just, I had to take a class. They teach you how to use their machines. So even though I'd been long arming for 10 years at that point, you still have to learn how their machines work. And their machines are super fancy and they have the computerized patterns available. So I can choose from hundreds and thousands and whatever I can think of, and set it up on the tablet and, mark out the size of my quilt, just give it all this information and this design. And then the machine will create my design on my quilt. And it's amazing. It's like magic. And to be honest, I haven't free motion quilted in like a year and a half or 2 years because I love the computerized patterns. They can just do more than I can do. I'll probably free motion quilt again, I'm sure, at some point. But for now, I've just been really enjoying getting to pick a really cool pattern and set up the machine and go. I have a couple videos I've taken and some photos I've taken at the Longarm place, so you can kind of get a sense of what it looks like. So I'll insert those, as I'm talking about this, but it's really cool. So you should look in your town and see who has, their Longarm machine up for rental. I think a lot of people do this. It's a good way to kind of subsidize the cost of a Longarm machine. So, if people want to buy a Longarm and have it in their home, they're super expensive. But if you can kind of rent time to other people who want to use it, that helps you pay your monthly, finance cost or whatever on the machine, and win-win, right? So I'd say definitely ask around at your local quilt shop, or just Google, Yelp, something, and see if there's a quilting studio or just an individual who rents time on their Longarm machine. And honestly, it's really easy to do. It can seem intimidating, but if you know how to sew, and you kind of know the mechanics of a sewing machine, Longarm is just, it's like if your piece stays still and you just move the machine around, with handles, like you're drawing with both hands in a big, huge machine. So you can move the machine in circles and loops and, I don't know, it's really fun. So if you haven't tried Longarm quilting, I recommend giving it a go. I like it a lot. So yeah, hopefully that was helpful. And that was just like a little glimpse into what else I have cooking in this craft room besides cross stitch projects. Yeah, so I will see you in my next quilting video with some finished and completed quilts that myself and my family have enjoyed over the years. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.